Hello everyone, we are continuing with Do App. In this video I'm going to show you frontend of app. I'm using Visual Studio Code and I also need Android Studio for emulator. I'm using this emulator. So it is this emulator Tiramisu. So in Flutter app we are calling endpoints from API. You also need to run API project. I have done it. So this is get page. We are getting list of tasks and I can also search them by title. So I will put breakpoint here. And now when I click search, I will call this endpoint. Now title is null. And I will get all tasks, but if I write some value in this text field, title has value, and now I will only get this task. Let's go back in Visual Studio. For now I will close app. To see that changes, check this commit configured Kotlin version. So I do those changes. You can see them here and also here. Before that configuration I couldn't install a lot of Dart packages. You should also add permission Android mainfest file, Android permission internet, to be able to call API endpoints. So here we are now in main file of Flutter app. Each Flutter app must have main function, and here I'm calling this widget. In Flutter everything is a widget. Widget is main building structure of Flutter app. And this is what I return with this widget. So this is wrapped with material app. So material app wraps all app and provide material design elements. It is like HTML tag in HTML pages. So this is HTML. In head you have title, and this is like body. Home is like body. It's not 100% like HTML page, but it is very similar. For now, there are only two pages in this app: to do list screen for displaying all tasks that you see in the beginning of video, and to do detail for modifying and adding single task. Let's run this app again with command flutter run. So it will appear here. This is to do list screen widget, and this is design of it. It uses master screen widget. So with this widget we can avoid repeating code, because every widget will use scaffold. It is widget that provide material design for pages. It has app bar, body, floating action button, and other parts. So I will just pass string, and it will be passed here as title, and body widget, child widget, which will be passed as body. So here in to do list screen I will use master screen widget, and I will pass parameters to title, floating action button, and child for body of page. So you can see here this is all one column. In this row I have text input field and button. So this is text field. It must have controller from where I will read text, and it will be sent to get paged endpoint. Let's go back inside body of page. So it is this row with text field and elevated button. When I press this button, API endpoint for getting page result is called. Now there is size box widget which add height here to give some space between this row and a list of tasks. And here I'm using expanded widget to stretch this list through entire page. If data from backend is still not fetched yet, I will use this spinning circle, and when it is get, I will display tasks. I will use padding to add some space around, and then inside padding I will use list view builder to display all tasks in a list with this design. So I will pass result, which is a list of tasks from backend. I will use card widget to add this elevation here and list style for each task. List style is one item in list view. A list style widget has following attributes. So on tab is method when you press on a list style, so it will go to do details page. Then it has a leading attribute, which is this circle. It is not clickable, but with inkwell widget I can add click event on it. So this is used to make task undone or done, actually to change its done status. So when I press this, it make task done, and again it will make task undone. Then there is title and subtitle. In subtitle I put due date of task. And trailing I put this icon which will be used later to add tasks to favorites. So how do we call API endpoints in Flutter app? For that you need to use following packages. It is HTTP and also provider to make providers for all entities. Now I will go in this folder and file base provider. So this is base provider class. It inherits change notifier. Change notifier notifies all listeners when state of class is changed, and it is part of provider package. So this is abstract generic class, and it will be inherited by providers of all entities. Inside base provider I will have two variables, base URL and endpoint. Base URL is basically address of web API and port number. This is default value, and it is not localhost because I'm using emulator, and default address for emulator is 10.0.2.2. Port number is same. To avoid hard-coded base URL, it can be passed via environment variable, but if it is not, it will use default value. So I provided default value. Endpoint is remaining part name of endpoint API, and for to do items is going to be API to do items / get page for this endpoint. As you can see, base URL, endpoint, and action. I'll provide endpoint name in constructor. So here you can see for to do item, this is constructor of base class. The super is like base in C#. You calling constructor of base class. So first method is get paged. It will have object filter, which are filter parameters from search object. It is dynamic, so it is not determined class. So I'm not constrained to pass only one class. So if there are filters, I will add them to URL, and it is done with this getQuery string. I pass filter. So it will turn parameters object into string. It will go through each parameter and return string. You can just copy this function. It is not something that I write by myself. It is something that I also find. So let's go back in getPage method. Then I need to parse URL string to URE object and create headers. So these are headers. Content type is application JSON. So this is function for creating headers, and I will return this object. Let's again go back to getPage function. So then I will call get method. I'm passing URE and headers. And this is async function. In Flutter, you only work with async functions, so there are no synchronous functions. This is why every endpoint must be async on backend. This get method is from HTTP package. This. After I get response, I will check is response valid. So I created this custom function which will have response as parameter, and it will return either exceptions or true if response is valid. So if response is valid, I will decode body of response and I will declare search result object. Search result object is like page result on backend. For now I will close this app. So search result is class on frontend which corresponds to page list class on backend. Let's go here. So this is this class. So page list on backend and search result on frontend. It has same attributes, page number and at the end items. So I will map all values from data to attributes of search result, and at the end I will convert all items from JSON to actual model in Flutter app. So in To-Do item provider, items from response will be converted to To-Do item model. I put models here in models folder. JSON serializable generically creates methods for converting model to JSON and opposite JSON to model. So this is method for first case to convert JSON to model, and this is method for second case for converting model to JSON. You need to provide this part and name this file. Practice is to just add .g, and you need to run this command dart run build runner build, and it will automatically create this generated file. And you should not touch this file. You can see it will generate two methods for both cases. Let's go back in base provider. So it will return result. And now let's test how it works. I will put breakpoint here, and now I will run this app with UI debugger, not with console, not from terminal. With this way you can use debugger. So I will open emulator. So app is run and this method is called. You can see now there are no filters, actually only page size. Because here we are not using paging, I will pass very large number of page size, and then let's go through method. This is base URL, this is endpoint to do API to do item. And now we will check for filters. There's no title, but there's page size. With query string we will add filters in URL, you can see this. Title is null, page size is very large number. We will pass that to URE, create headers. Then we will call endpoint, and if it is valid, let's just see response. So status code is 200, so it is okay, it is valid. This is body of result, it is in JSON, so we will decode that into object, and then we will initialize search result, assign all attributes, and then convert all items from JSON. We can skip that and go to result. So this is result. We have 5 items, to do items, which are going to be displayed now. Here they are. If I pass title, I'll also have title as filter, and this is how URL looks like now. We also have title, it is not null, and result is only one task. So when app is open, this to-do list screen is opened, and in its initial state this getPage method is called. So init state is function that runs when page is firstly created. During creation of widget, when widget is added to routes tree. So you can see here we are calling getPage method, and we are passing filters for title value from text field, and for page size very large number because we are not using pagination here, and then we are setting isLoading variable to false. You need to use set state because if you don't, changes won't be applied on page, and this can only be done in stateful widget. So I need to use stateful widget now because this is dynamic page, it constantly changes. Stateless widgets are for static pages. So it will set isLoading to false, and because here isLoading is now false, it will remove loading circle and display list of tasks. This method is also called in search button, so I will search elevated button, and here you can see I also call this function init data, where I am calling getPage method for to do items. So we covered the first method from base provider. Now we will move to the next method, it is insert. With this method we pass object and do same thing like in get method to create URL and URE object and headers to convert object model that we are sending to JSON. Inserting tasks is done on to-do detail page. This is that stateful widget. It has parameter to do item. This is because same page will be used for adding and editing tasks. When to do item is null, it is for adding, and when it is not null, it is for editing. In this page I will use form for adding and modifying elements, so I will use form builder package. For using form builder you need to install package. I'll go in pubspec-yaml. This is this package for Flutter form builder, and I forgot to mention that for JSON serializable you need to use this and these packages, JSON annotation. Let's go back into the details. So for form I need form key and initial values. Actually, initial values are not mandatory, but for modifying elements I will need to load current values of that entity. Then in init state I will set initial values when to do item is not null. When it is null, all values will be null, of course. I don't need search result because I'm not getting a list of elements now. I will also remove import for search result, and then I will go to build method. Here, when to do item is not null, it is edit task, and when it is null, it is add task. I added in app var back button, so it will go back. You can see it here. This is that back button, so it will go in one route back. Then in body of scaffold widget I will use form builder. I will pass initial values and form key. Here inside card I will use text field for title. I extracted this widget in method. You can see here it is form builder text field, and here I am passing value of that attribute in model. I also have validator that value must not be empty. And I'm passing also label. I'm passing actually two parameters, name, which is attribute name, and a label which will be displayed in form. So when I want to add, here is title. If I want to add without value, it will display validation message value is mandatory. I also extracted this row method because I'm using it multiple times, so you can see here in util widgets file. Let's go back into do details. Then second field is form builder date picker for due date. I need to set due date of task, and value also cannot be null. I won't have form field for to do status because initially every task will be undone. And then after you enter values, you need to save that changes to add task in database. So it is done here with elevated button save. You can see here this is text save. So this is on press method when that button is clicked. This is that button. So I will write something here. Buy milk, buy chocolate. And due date tomorrow at 4 p.m. 4:30. And I will put breakpoint here when it is pressed. And now let's see what's happening. First form is validated if it is valid. Then it checks if to do item is null or not. So first case is when we edit task, so to do item is different from null, but it is not that case now. It is null because we are adding task. So we will use values form with form key, and we will map that in request. So you can see that request, it has title and due date. We also need to encode date with this method. in util file. Then I will set is done to false because initially task will be undone. And then I will call this insert method. Let's go inside. So we are passing object with values. URE is created, headers are created. Object is encoded to JSON, and we are calling post method on backend. Because response is valid, we are returning result. And you can see here is the message, task is successfully added. Here is buy chocolate. So from this page where all tasks are displayed, you can go to details page like this to edit, and like this from here from floating button to add new task. So to move to another page, you need to use router. Let's go here. And you can see this, that to do details page appear 2 times. So I'm navigating to another page like this by using navigator and push method, and with material page route I'm going to do details page. Routes in Flutter work like stack, so when you push new route, you are adding new route on the top of stack. This is why it is important to go back, in this case when you are on detail page. So you need to use pop context to go back to remove that route, because otherwise you will just add one route to the another, and this is not what we want. When we go to the details page, we want to move back to remove that route, not to add another route of to-do list screen and then again to do detail and so on. I also put that in variable, and when variable is reload, I will again call this function initData to get new data from backend. This is because if I don't do this, when I add new task, when I go back to the to-do list screen, that new task won't appear. This is why I need to call again initData. So here I am receiving that value, and on to-do details I'm sending this value reload when task is deleted, added or updated. So this is first case in this floating action button when we go to add task. Second case is when we want to modify task. It is not reload, it is to do details page. Let's search them. So it is here when I press on list style. So if I press there, I'm going to edit task. So this is same page, but now I'm modifying this task. So I will add some characters and click save. Now again, it is this method form is valid, and now to do item is not null. So I will update. I will call update method, and here you can see task is successfully modified. Title is changed. If you notice, delete icon only appears when we edit task, but not when we are adding task. This makes sense because you cannot delete task if it doesn't exist. So in to do details, let's go to delete. So I'm using this visibility widget to hide delete icon when to do item is null. So it will only be visible when to do item is different from null, when it is not null in case of editing. So here I'm just calling remove method from base provider. And let's now delete this by chocolate task. So here I will first be asked if I want to delete that task because it is dangerous action, so we need to warn user. And I can cancel it. And I can also click OK, and then it will be deleted. I'm using this alert dialog and show dialog method to warn user to make sure if he really wants to delete that task. And the last functionality you have in this app is making task done or undone, changing its done status. So it is custom method, it only belongs to do item provider. Let's go there. It is here. So in base provider I have all base CRUD operations, all base CRUD endpoints which will be used in every entity, but here in to do item provider I have this specific method which only belongs to do item entity. So I'm calling this method inside to do list screen in leading. So when I click on this it will be changed, done status will be changed. So what I done here, I'm calling change done status method. It is changed, and then I change done status of that item in list. I also need to call set state to apply changes on that page because I have different icons and different text decoration when task is done or when it is undone. So when task is undone, this is just plain circle and there is due date and text, and when it is done there is this correct sign and there is no due date because it's finished, and there is text decoration of line true on title. Now when we have architecture, it is much easier to further develop app. This part of code is also on adding Flutter project branch, so check that branch for this code. If you like this video and want more videos like this, press like button and subscribe, and see you next time.